Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a review of Doctor Who Infernal, or Doctor Who The War Doctor Infernal Devices, which is his second box set in the John Hurt War Doctor series of box sets, which back in the day there was 4 and that releases, so we're halfway through reviewing all 4, although bit of housekeeping I suppose in that respect. I will probably take a break after this box set review because I don't want to just burn through all of the War Doctor box sets. I want to, as I say, have a little bit of a break from it, but yeah. But obviously of this recording I have also reviewed the previous box set, which was Doctor Who the Only the Monstrous War Doctor box set. First of all we'll go over the sleeve sort of thing, which has like a grumpy looking War Doctor played by John Hurt, Jacqueline Pearce as Cardinal Illustra, as well as a Dalek and some Gallifrey stuff and explosions and lasers. Then you've got the War Doctor, you've got 2 there to mark that it's the second box set. Big Finish, We Love Stories. The synopsis is the synopsis of the overall box set, as well as the episodes within the box set, as well as who's written them, plus telling you there's some special features as well, or an hour-long bonus thing, like behind the scenes sort of thing. So yeah, first of all we have Legion of the Lost. Oh, actually, I'll go over the packaging for each of these first. I honestly really quite like all of the sort of covers for these. Really like the Legion of the Lost has sort of very fiery red sort of cover. Thing of Guile, the middle story, has sort of a sort of blue motif and colour scheme predominantly on the cover, and then for The Never Went it's mainly green and that, and 2 of the 3 of the stories covers have Daleks on them. I quite like the fact that this one's kind of like the bronze Dalek but with silver spheres, as well as the dome being blue, and then on that one it's just a golden bronze Dalek, but with the TARDIS in the background and John Hurt looking quite despaired. And then you've got the TARDIS in the background and all that as well. And yeah, I like all 3 of the covers this time around for various reasons in this particular release, so that's cool. Well, that's a plus. First of all, in the box set you have Legion of the Lost, written by John Dorney, and this one is really, really good in my opinion. It just sort of flows really well. I mean, my only major criticism, or critique if you will, is that I don't like the fact that the Daleks aren't in it that much. I mean, I guess it gives it a bit more uniqueness and a bit of a fresh sort of start and that to the box set. I obviously throughout this box set John Hurt is 10 out of 10, he's amazing and that. I love the fact that they've got another actor in this particular story who is also quite well-renowned sort of actor, with the likes of David Warner playing this sort of technomancer. So I like the fact that they sort of steer into this magic in the Time War, but it's also mixed with technology as well, so it's not just sort of Harry Potter-esque stuff. It's sort of like if Harry Potter met the Doctor Who universe. It kind of reminds me of the 7th Doctor episode Battlefield, which I'll be honest is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine anyway, but this being sort of, as I say, set in the Time War is really cool. And then spoiler alert, but what they do in this story is resurrect dead people, which isn't it isn't as sort of a revolutionary concept as I might have first thought. There are other materials within the Time War sort of era of Doctor Who that play around with this concept, like some of the Gallifrey Time War box sets, as well as Engines of War, which is a novel and a book, and then probably some of the comics maybe as well. So in the expanded universe it's quite common knowledge, for lack of a better term, at this point, to know that the Time Lords were trying to resurrect their own soldiers for the Time War and that. You've also got an actress playing Collis, who is this sort of soldier who doesn't want to be part of the war and that, and she's such a likeable character, but I love the fact that she's not just sort of yes Doctor all the time. She tries to actually stand her own ground, and there is quite a bit of character conflict between John Hurt's War Doctor and her, which I quite like because it makes her more sort of fleshed out within such a short time. Because all these stories are an hour and 20 minutes, so it works out that the box set is the equivalent of a 4-disc sort of slash story one that has just an hour long one, if that makes sense. So like this the runtime is the equivalent of like Dark Eyes 1, but it's 3 stories, an hour and 20 minutes long, so 80 minutes each. But yeah, what else? Cardinal Illustra isn't introduced until sort of the latter end of this story, which again kind of gives it a bit more breathing space and a bit more uniqueness from the previous, where we left off from the previous box set. And yeah, I love the fact that the Varga plants are kind of a random reference that I just thrown in here, which I'm pretty sure they're like from like a 60s Dalek story, or maybe even just sort of Mission to the Unknown or something to that effect. But yeah, I love their introduction in this and that. And the Daleks, as I say, could have been in this a bit more, but it's not the end of the world. And I just love the fact that like it's quite unique and it's quite experimental, but it was really well written, well sort of for lack of a better term, directed and structured, that I could keep up with pretty much most of it, you know. And as I say, both John Hurt and David Warner give such a really stellar performance, and I love the theme as well, to the War Doctor theme sort of thing as well. I'm not sure if I already mentioned that. And then there are some slimy and some spineless sort of Time Lords, so what's not really to love? Legion of the Lost, really. I gave it a 9 out of 10. Moving on to the second story in the box set, you have A Thing of Guile, which kind of reminded me of Into the Daleks in terms of the setting and sort of its sort of pace, and it just kind of felt more like a sort of for lack of a better term, more sort of action adventure-y sort of story. It felt more sort of, again, for lack of a better term, Star Warsy, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, you've even got like a giant sort of worm creature, like sandworm slash worm thing, which kind of reminds me of something we'd see in either like original Star Wars or like Mandalorian or something, you know. And then yeah, you've got some Daleks being quite nefarious and devious in this story. I'll try not to spoil what that means. But then yeah, you've also got more of the one connective tissue in terms of these 3 stories, in terms of the characterization of the War Doctor, and I say that in inverted commas, like War Doctor, because he is trying to renounce the name the Doctor, you know, and Cardinal Illustra, essentially in this story, it's pretty much clear that the Doctor is not the one pulling the strings here, as it were. Oh, well, he still is, obviously, but he's doing it from a less than comfortable, let's say, position, and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, and then what else? It's the sound design and quality for all 3 of these stories is pretty amazing, really. I this time listened to it on my laptop with my headphones, so it was really sort of, for lack of a better term, surround sound, really cool, epic sort of sound design, really. And that, although, to be fair, I can't remember if it's A Thing of Guile or The Never Went, but there is a weird thing that happened where someone was in a TARDIS or somewhere and there was just this constant noise that was just really irritating. So, you know, that could have been cut out. But what else? Yeah, I'm just trying to think, really. A Thing of Guile is probably the weaker one, and is definitely a dip down, unfortunately, for me. You know, to sort of go back to Legion of the Lost, I think Legion of the Lost is so good to me, and that for me, that I may have even listened to it 2-3 times, which is a rarity for me to listen to an audio story that many times, really. Or to have listened to, as I say, a Doctor Who audio that many times. But A Thing of Guile, I couldn't really remember much from the last time I watched this, listened to this story, and yeah, it's, as I say, it kind of reminds me of Into the Dalek in terms of the setting and the sort of spacey sort of battles and stuff, and that, and it kind of feels, pacing-wise, kind of more like a new series-esque sort of story. It's more the action-packed one. The Daleks are in it a lot more, and they're being sort of pretty ruthless, so that's always good. But yeah, overall I gave A Thing of Guile a 7 out of 10. It's not the worst story ever, but it's quite it's quite sort of simple story. Yeah, I still found it not that engaging or like clear to picture what was going on. You know, I kept feeling like I was dipping in and out of the story. Yeah, which isn't great, I guess. Lastly, the final story for this box set is The Neverwent. Another theme of this story is infernal devices, meaning in each of the story there is like this weapon of war that the Doctor's trying to go about sort of capturing and then getting rid of, because obviously he doesn't want it in the slimy hands of the Daleks, or more even importantly, the Time Lords, which is a sort of thing that he raises up in the first sort of story, as well as maybe even the second and third story. But yeah, The Neverwent is a thing that was referenced in End of Time, and yeah, now we kind of know what it is, although it is quite experimental and sort of difficult a listen, I thought, for me personally. This might have been the second time that I've listened to this one, where the other one was more simple and confusing. This one, as I say, is more sort of experimental and for lack of a better term, timey-wimey, and that, but at least it was a bit more bold and a bit more interesting in that, I guess. And yeah, basically, The Neverwent, from what I could remember and or picture from when listening to this yesterday, is this sort of hellish reality where like time is consistently in flux, and people are sort of essentially evolving and then de-evolving and reformatting and changing and that, but they're always constantly hating the other side and that, essentially. And yeah, which might explain why there's sort of like a knight there, and then there's a laser bolt, and then there's the Dalek there, because it's all sort of, for lack of a better term, back to front, and and yeah, I mean, you kind of get like a bit of a side character at one point, but then she gets kind of, for lack of a better term, shafted in the story. The main secondary character in these two stories, The Thing of Guile and The Neverwent, is Jacqueline Pearce's Cardinal Illustra, who I like the performance, but obviously I don't like the character, but I don't think I'm meant to. But yeah, she definitely opposes the Doctor, and yeah, the Doctor really sort of, for lack of a better term, bites back in this story, and it is interesting to see how much he's willing to take on board of the shit from the Time Lords, essentially, and he is at breaking point. He really doesn't want to be part of this, and he even brings up the valid point that, like, if the Doctor was here, he would be ashamed of what I'm doing. That's why I can't be that person anymore. That's why I've cast that name aside, because what I'm doing isn't what the Doctor would do. This is hell, and she's just like, oh, well, war is hell. And it's like, yeah, but you don't understand. These concepts are playing with ideas of like weaponry that can rewrite time so that you cease to exist, whole species, yet other people can still remember them being there once upon a time, but like they're completely erased from time, and it's pretty deadly, serious stuff that, as I say, the Doctor needs to get his hands on to get rid of these things. And yeah, obviously other Time Lords are like, wait, but are you not on our side, and that, but at that point, if it's like when Cardinal Illustra says something in A Thing of Guile, I think it is, like, oh, why did you really think we was that stupid as to use this weapon? We put it in the Omega Arsenal. And then the Doctor's like, or when she says, like, do you really think that that's stupid? He's just like, do I have to answer that? Like, it's pretty obvious that you are idiots, and then yeah, how he refers to two other Time Lords in A Thing of Guile as like Tweedledee and Tweedledum, like the idea that he really is just trying to do things his own way, but everything is kind of like blowing up in his face quite a few times. He wants what's best, yet the universe is quite honestly quite a lot of the time fighting back him and his meddling, like for example what happens in The Neverwent. And that, where he does try and sort of control things, and Jacqueline Pearce's Cardinal Lister is like, well, how are you any different from us or the Daleks or these other tyrants who are trying to get rid of people's free will? Like, what are you doing? And that, you know, and he's just like, yeah, but I'm trying to make peace here. You can just, these people don't have to always hate each other. But it kind of backfires, and they go back into the sort of hellish war. But yeah, I mean, this box set, I really enjoyed this box set. I gave it overall a 24 out of 30. So yeah, it's definitely one of the stronger box sets that I've listened to. And so yeah, as I say, I'll be taking a bit of a break from the War Doctor box sets, but I will continue reviewing them at some point, maybe beginning of next year, maybe, or sort of March onwards, maybe. I'm not sure, but yeah, I should hopefully be picking it back up at some point. But as I say, I just want a bit of a break from just reviewing the Doctor Who sort of War Doctor box sets. But yeah, a 24 out of 30. Thanks for watching. Please do comment, rate, and subscribe.